Hey, Floyd, I'm Joe from Nocturnal. How are you doing today?
Hello, Joe. I'm doing just fine, thank you.
Well, let's start with this character, Mickey. Why do you think he survived so long, and why do you think he's such an icon still?
Yeah, Mickey Mouse is unbeatable. He's a survivor. That that's what made Mickey such a marvelous character to write. And when I had the opportunity to write Mickey Mouse stories, I had a character who was you couldn't ask for better because Mickey Mouse was everything an author needs. He's determined, he's scrappy, he's resourceful, and he's lovable. People like him. He's a likable guy. So that's what keeps Mickey going. That's what's kept him going since he was first created back in the 1930s. And he's still just as active and viable today. So Mickey is a marvelous character, and there's no end in sight. He's going to be with us for a while.
And when you look back at the man Walt Disney, what do you think that made this man so amazing, and the way he led people, inspired people, and caused people to dream?
Yeah, Walt Disney had to come up with a cartoon character when he lost the rights to Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. And so Walt needed a savior in a sense. The studio was in big trouble. They needed someone to bail them out. And Mickey Mouse proved to be that one character that was going to save the Walt Disney Studio. And of course, Mickey has endured. He's been just a marvelous character, appearing in short cartoons, a special appearance in the feature film Fantasia. He's become a salesman for the company. He's been sort of the mascot of the Walt Disney Company. But more than that, Mickey has been a reflection of Walt Disney. The creator himself is Mickey Mouse. And so if you want to know who Walt Disney is, you only need to look at Mickey, and then you will know the kind of man Walt Disney is, because Mickey Mouse is Walt Disney. It's no accident that Walt provided the initial voice of Mickey Mouse back when they first began doing sound cartoons. So Mickey Mouse is Walt Disney, and he endures today.
Hmm. And as you look at, how animation has evolved and changed from when you first started to now, is there certain aspects of the change that makes you a little sad, and is there certain parts that make you a little excited and optimistic? How do you think about what it's become?
Well, innovation has always been a big part of the Walt Disney Studio. People often think that innovation began at Disney with computers, and I had to remind people that the Disney Studio was innovating as far back as the 1930s, when they experimented with all kinds of new technology and processes back in the 30s into the 40s with a multiplane camera and the first attempts at stereophonic sound in the early 40s, on up through the 50s. Mickey Mouse was always going through various iterations during this time, but you know, uh, Walt was always looking toward the future. He learned from the past, and we all benefited from the past, but the future always had Walt's eye, and Walt always looked toward the future. And he was going to bring Mickey Mouse along with us as he moved forward into the future. So, there's great things about the past, and we learn from our mistakes and from the things we learn over the years. But the future is where Walt Disney had his eye, and he was always moving forward. And of course, Mickey Mouse moved along with Walt as he moved toward the future. So, Mickey Mouse is not locked in time. He's not a relic from the past. He's very much with us today and will continue to be with us in the future.
That's a beautiful perspective on what we create, and especially the art. It's like, yeah, we create it for people now, but it also it resonates with other people of different times, and that's one thing amazing about Mickey. Is
Yeah.
there a certain character, through your experience with Disney, is there a certain Disney character or Disney movie that has deeply or most resonated with you? When you think of who Floyd is, do you think of a certain character and you're like, I think I relate the most with him or her?
Wow. there are so many Disney characters. It's like the old question when people ask me, what is your favorite Disney character? And quite frankly, there are so many Disney characters just on the films that I've worked on alone. How does one choose a favorite character? There are marvelous characters, to be sure. Some are heroes, some are villains, and you learn to delight in all of it. Evil villains like Shere Khan or the stepmother in Cinderella, the evil Maleficent in Sleeping Beauty, and we've got this marvelous cast of characters at Disney that that we enjoy and that we take with us. But there's no one quite like the headliner himself, and that's Mickey Mouse. Mickey endures. He's been with us since the 30s. He continues to be relevant today. So even though we've all had favorite Disney characters, the genie from Aladdin, a wonderful character created by Robin Williams and Eric Goldberg, a real standout character, great Disney character, but no one's better than Mickey Mouse. And when all is said and done, Mickey is the champion.
Well, thank you so much, Floyd.
You bet. You bet. It's been my pleasure.
All right, how are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you, Joel?
I'm doing wonderful. So, first of all, I'd love to hear about what this meant to you personally, both in, you've been studying art and like what did Mickey Mouse mean to you personally?
What does Mickey Mouse mean to me personally? When I was growing up, I was a kid of the child of the 80s when I really started being cognizant of Mickey Mouse. And Mickey was always this figure that seemed so much larger than life. I understood that it represented the company, and I understood that if I just went to Disneyland, he would be there. And I got a chance to touch base with him. I got a chance to see him and access all the memories I've ever had of seeing anything related to Walt and any of the feature films. He was the hub for this critical cultural touchstone. I just knew if I had that moment. And that's always loomed large in the back of my mind, and thinking about what does it mean to have a fictional character be situated in nearly all aspects of my daily life, quietly sitting there, quietly reminding me of an ideal childhood that I may or may not have had, or an ideal future as promised in the various feature films. And so getting an opportunity to reflect specifically on Mickey Mouse was quite for me personally, a wonderful and challenging enterprise, because it means confronting my previous ideas about Mickey, balancing that with critical historical reflection on how that representation operates in American culture. It was quite meaningful in that way. All this through a popular animated character.
Wow. I love, especially in the film, how they present, what you said about his impact on American culture specifically, and culture throughout the world. Especially at the segment where they kind of share his like impact in World War II and stuff. And tell me about that. And as you're kind of studying the history of art, but specifically the history of Mickey, elaborate on his impact and his involvement in World War II.
Well, I think one of the more stunning components of this entire history, and definitely for the filmmakers and often myself when I think about it, is really the ways in which Mickey may or may not have a presence during World War II, what it meant for the troops and for Americans, or what happens in the face of the revelations of the Holocaust, and then who Mickey becomes on the other side of that. And it is really in that moment, I think we can really understand that Mickey is an enduring character that can weather and be a part of critical conversations that, at least in folks' living rooms and in the newspaper, are about violence, about fear, about turmoil, and that somehow Mickey is able to integrate, somehow have a place within those conversations, whether it's helping the U.S. government with materials in support of the troops and being thoughtful of helping them, to offering being a form of entertainment that's almost a distraction from the realities of war. And so once Mickey weathers that moment, once he is able to carry through that critical international trauma, I think that's the moment where we can all realize that, no, this figure isn't going anywhere. And yes, he can sustain through whatever elements seem to crop up, and other conflicts that seem to crop up, at least in American history.
And why Mickey? Because why did he survive? And if there's always artists in every generation and every time, but only some art survives and becomes like part of a forefront of our minds. Why did Mickey survive?
Mickey can survive because Mickey is a character who, as he develops after the war, is able to ride the middle. And by that, I mean, he begins to embody a kind of middle class idealism. And so there's something to access for everyone in that. Mickey rarely does anything really after the 30s and early 40s that is considered untoward, that is considered aggressive, that is considered polarizing, right? Mickey becomes the perfect translator of sort of idealized middle-brow America. And that means a balanced relationship to consumerism. That means holding to hegemonic cultural values. That means being available and aware, being very media friendly. All of those components are how we understand the second half of the 20th century. Any cultural icon in the United States that really survives and has a general positive feeling about them, they are characterized that way. Middle brow, non-polarizing, media friendly, adaptable in their representation for a variety of constituents. And that's what makes him key. That's what allows Andy Warhol to adopt Mickey's persona in the name of pop art and what's considered an alternative art, but still a commentary on the very, representations that we glamorize, that we valorize, and that we visually can recognize quite easily.
That's awesome. And I'd love to hear kind of your relationship to this project. So as you are kind of, you hear that you're going to be part of this project, what was your process of like additional research, and then sharing that? I'd love to hear some of your process behind that.
Additional research. So I was, for a long time, I was fortunate to get to teach on Disney. And so that was one of the components that always had me reading the most contemporary representations about Disney. I think and particularly Mickey, because you can't read about Disney without reading about Mickey. I think for me, I needed to revisit also his significance in a historical context. And by that, I mean, really understand how he is sustaining during the 50s, late 40s, when the Disney feature film is taking prominence, to try to understand how does he survive? When we have these iconic princesses, and we've got, Walt taking the company in so many directions. And by 55, you have Disneyland arriving. So for me, it required, rethinking about what an icon is, spending time understanding and tracing how he's changed in cartoons from the 30s and 40s. What happens to him when you hit the 60s, 50s, and 60s? And also thinking about those wonderful moments now when I go to the cinema and I see animated pictures that are Disney made, and part of their symbol is Steamboat Willie. We see the animated Steamboat Willie sort of drawn out when it says Disney Animation. So I know that sort of hearkening back was key to me. to just keep thinking about those important touchstones for Disney.
Thank you. Thank you for taking time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to chat today.
Hey, Megan, how are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. So I'd like to start with first, like, what was it like working with Disney on this project?
They were actually really great collaborators. They were really willing to let us play ball. We came in wanting to, give Mickey a fair shot, both telling the joyful and happy side of his history, but also the honest and true part of it, which is not always sunshine and rainbows. So they were really, to their credit, willing to let us take a dive into this in a way that I don't think they've let filmmakers do in the past. And so that's been really great for our purposes.
And there's so much, both archival footage, so many stories to tell about Walt Disney, but also about Mickey. Like, how did you guys figure out, how do we fit this in a 92-minute movie?
Yeah, that's a big question. I still don't know how we did it. Just a lot of outreach, a lot of working with the animators, a lot of working with film and animation experts to try and root out what are the key events in Mickey's history that sort of propel him forward in time and lead us to this point where he is this ginormous symbol, but also a ginormous character still. So yeah, just a lot of treatments, outlines, writing stuff on marker boards, spitballing with even people we met on the street. What interests you about Mickey Mouse? He's a character that has a meaning for everybody, whether that's good, bad, or indifferent, and sort of rooting out those key moments that would resonate with people. And we really worked hard to also find moments that even the toughest of Disney fans might not be aware of.
I love that. And I love how the film is both the story of Mickey Mouse, but also the story of Walt Disney. And both those parts really resonate. And it's so cool how they go together. From when you started this project to like when you were creating it, what were some of the things that kind of surprised you? Like, oh, wow, I didn't realize this about the man Walt Disney or about the mouse. What were some of the things that just surprised you and like, oh, and kind of shaped how this film became?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, as Floyd says in the film, Walt is Mickey, Mickey is Walt, and learning sort of how heartbroken his wife Lillian was after his death, because Mickey, even to her, the person who knew him best, Mickey represented her husband. And I think that says what you need to know about sort of that parallel relationship. And there were so many moments that surprised me, just in terms of listening to Floyd, like how hands-on Walt was with the animators, even, when Floyd was a young guy drawing in the 1950s and 60s, Walt was very much there alongside them. So he was always very integrated into the animation process, even after Disney became this huge corporation. And another facet that I loved learning about was the ink and paint process by all of these women that worked in animation years before most people understood that they do. And watching Antonio Pelayo do the ink and paint process with such art craft is phenomenal. And you're just curious how people can be so talented.
And I love that with all the going through this footage and going through these stories, how did you kind of, was there anything that you guys wanted to get? And you're like, oh, I would love to hear this story. That was a little bit, or maybe even it was archival footage or one of those things that you're like, that you kind of had a fight to get and it took a while, but you finally got it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say in general, like it's an uphill battle making a film about the world's most iconic figure, so to speak. There's a million things you can include, and sort of whittling that down is hard in itself. And then, of course, Disney has been timid about what they've shown in the past from, sort of these controversial shorts. To their credit, they really did allow us to walk that line and go into it. But all of that, presents its challenges in making sure that we're using the right archive to tell the story. All the sort of pieces of artwork that people have created over the years with Mickey's imagery. Not all of these are signed off on by the Disney company, but it shows you how important this character is, even to the world's top artists, Andy Warhol, Klaus Oldenburg. So all of that was really important for us to touch on.
And was there parts of both Mickey's story and parts as you're creating this film that inspired you as a filmmaker and inspired you personally?
Sure. I think watching other people's creative process always continues to inspire me because I'm definitely one of those people. I don't think creativity comes as natural to me as it does to other people. Like, I work really hard to tell stories and I bust my butt, I think, to do it. And I've always been envious of people who just like flows out of their veins. But, you know, watching the animators work, watching the ink and paint team work, it really resonates with me that everybody has a different creative process and no one way is the right way. And there's always a great team of collaborators to help something get to the end. And we were lucky to have all of those people as part of this project.
Mm. And as you were thinking about how it was going to inspire other people and impact other people, was there certain aspects that you're like, oh, that you thought through, like, oh, this is our target audience? Or are you just like, okay, we're going to inspire all these Mickey fans and it's all going to impact them different ways?
I think we set out to make a film that would resonate with both Mickey fans and hopefully with people who are not Disney fans that may be just coming to it for the first time. Given that it's on the Disney Plus platform, I think it will naturally lend itself to a Disney fandom, but I'm hoping also people outside of that bubble come to see the film. You know, the thing I take away from it, you know, especially in the documentary world, people make a lot of dark films and they're not always light. And the thing I'm happy about with this film that we've made is that, you know, even though we do touch on controversial aspects of Mickey's history, overall, like, we still love this character. There's a reason why Jeff Morgan, Chris, myself set out to do this film. We have a love for this character and we want to be honest and fair to him and fair to what Walt and Up Iwerks created. And so, yeah, if people can just have, you know, an hour and a half where they sit down and enjoy a little piece of Disney history, that's good by us.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Meghan.
Thank you, Joe.